Most mornings around here start slow, just how I like it. A quiet moment for coffee, breakfast with the kids, letting the animals out for the day and watching them from the porch before starting the rest of the tasks. We have butter to make, milk to process, a little garden work with some fancy new garden gates to get done, and a sweet treat for this evening. Nothing fancy, just an ordinary summer day. We have a fridge full of milk from this week's pickup. Now, I don't always pick up this much milk, but we have a quick trip planned that we are going on this weekend. So I grabbed a few extra to make sure that we had some when we got back home because we would be missing our usual pickup day. Now, normally for my milk, I have found what we use the most, and so I've gotten myself into a couple of routines to make sure we always have those on hand. So first, I usually like to skim the cream off of just a jar or two for drinking milk. Like I said, this week it's more because I picked up more milk. But for drinking milk and then mozzarella, I don't leave the cream in for my mozzarella. The cream I will either use for a treat during the week, like something like whipped cream, if I have that planned or if there's something that I'm wanting to make, or I will put it in coffee if I really feel like it. If nothing else, which is what usually happens, I'll make butter to either use or store in the freezer. The rest of the milk with the cream gets turned into cheddar or cream cheese. So with our raw milk, we are making butter and buttermilk. We have drinking milk. We make mozzarella and cheddar and cream cheese. And occasionally I will use it for cooking. That's pretty much what we go for with ours. And this week I left some cream on for later in the week and decided to take some off and make some butter. Now, we have started milking our goats again, and so our drinking milk is being supplemented with that for now, and hopefully soon we'll start taking on some of the dairy products that I'm making out of our cow's milk pickup that we get each week. Butter's pretty simple. All you have to do is skim off the cream, put it in a stand mixer with the whip attachment or in some kind of butter churn, and just work it until the butter separates from the buttermilk, and then rinse it really good. And I am popping ours in the freezer. Now today I have a buttermilk starter culture that I am trying out. And so the instructions say that you just take roughly a quart of milk, mix in your starter culture, and leave it at room temperature 24 to 48 hours until it sets. And then you have buttermilk. So it's a very, very simple process. Now today I am using my buttermilk from Butter Making, which is not what it says to do, but this is a way that I can use up what we have and get something that closely resembles what I already keep in my kitchen. Now I wanted to have a little treat for supper because tonight I planned a very simple supper with just a meat and a vegetable. So today we are making lunch lady brownies from the Southern Lady Cooks cookbook. These are our favorite brownies. They've been raved about at church. My husband loves them. The kids love them. Now today I'm not going to do the frosting that goes on top. I'm just doing the brownies and a little bit of powdered sugar for whoever wants that right on top. And we make these gluten-free. So I will share with you what I actually do for these. I change it up a little bit than what they call for in the recipe, but if you're looking for the original recipe, I do adapt the recipe from the Southern Lady Cooks. It is not completely my own. So for these brownies, I do a cup of butter, put that in whatever pan I'm going to be baking the brownies in, and I put it in the oven while the oven preheats to 350 degrees. And then usually what I do, and I didn't do it this time, but usually what I do is I will line a 9x13 pan with foil and then grease it, either with cooking spray or avocado oil or something. This time I'm using more of a 9x9 pan, and they were just a bit thicker, took a little bit longer to bake, but that's okay. They were still delicious. In a bowl, while the butter melts in the oven, I add half a cup of cocoa powder, 2 cups of a gluten-free 1-for-1 blend. Sometimes I will do my own flour blend. I fresh mill the flour, add some starches, add some xanthan gum, and that is my blend. Today I am using a store-bought blend. The only one that I would recommend that I've tried is the Cup for Cup brand. So 2 cups of that, 2 cups of sugar, 4 eggs, and then a tablespoon of vanilla. I combine all of that. It is very thick, so just know it is a very, very thick batter that you have to then spread. Then once the butter is melted, I add that in as well. Spread it into my baking dish, and then I bake it for 30 minutes. When I do a 9x13, roughly 30 minutes. If I do a smaller pan where the brownies are thicker, I will bake it for even longer. Now today, like I said, I'm not doing the frosting. The frosting is very good if you decide to do that, but today I am not. Now out to the garden we go. I'm very excited. Stuff is starting to pop up everywhere. Flowers are blooming, and it is just a very exciting time. This is one of the few days that we had some sunshine and not rain. My dad and my husband had been working on our garden fence, and we finally have that up, and so now it is time for the gates, and they are finally going up. My dad cut all the pickets, built the gates out, and then we are hanging them up with some self-closing latches, and I just think they turned out beautiful. I can't wait till they weather and get that old wood look that I'm going for. Eventually we will have split rail fencing all around the garden, which is what we have in some areas of the rest of the farm. All of our corners of our pastures are fenced with split rail, and then just barbed wire and T-post in between. But I love the look of the old weathered wood split rail, and so that is what we are doing everywhere. I also love a good white picket fence, but I didn't want to do pickets all the way around because that is expensive and time consuming, and it doesn't necessarily match the rest of the farms. So I opted for just the picket gates, and I really do like how it looks. It kind of adds a little bit of difference where the gates stand out. Eventually I want to have the garden arches so I can grow sweet peas or morning glories or something over the top. Now originally I was going to paint these white, paint the entire garden fence white once we had the split rails up, just so that it popped and had more of a cottagey feel. But I am not going to sit here and paint all of this. I just know myself better, and then when it starts to chip and look a little bit run down, I know I'm not going to get back out there and repaint it. So weathered wood is what we're doing. All of our barns currently are weathered wood. Most of the barns around us that are actually historical are weathered wood, and I love that look. And so slowly we are transitioning everything that way. I'm going to redo a barn and cover it in the nicer weathered wood siding, and the garden fence will be that way. All of our pasture fencing will be that way, and then we'll have our white farmhouse. Now, after lots of garden work, we are taking a short little break for a brownie and a nice cold Coke. Now, y'all, I never win anything, ever. And considering the fact that I buy between 3 and 6 gallons of milk a week, I guess I was due to win a little gift basket from the dairy that we've been buying our milk from. And so I won this little gift basket, and it was so cute. A little card with their name on it, some recipe cards, a candle, some things she had handmade, a mug with their name on it, some antiques, and some vintage linens, and just several different things in this basket. And they were all so cute. Then Miss Wren, a friend that I made on here, she watches my videos and is so sweet, and now we have become friends, little pen pals, she sent me this box of goodies as well. And so that was so fun. Of course, Ren, you overdid it and you outdid yourself. And I am so thankful. Isla had a blast opening this up, finding the little goodies in there for her. But look at all of these sweet little antiques and goodies that she sent. Now, I had an extra jar of milk. It was one of those times where I just had the luxury of that. And so I am doing a jar of milk, which is a half gallon, into a pot here to start some cream cheese. Now, this is a very, very simple recipe. It is just a half gallon of milk. You bring that up until it starts to kind of foam on the top and steam really good, where you don't want to scorch it on the bottom, so you have to constantly stir it, but you just heat it until it's almost to a boil, but not completely, because this will boil over real easy. And once you reach that point, you add in a 1/4 cup of lemon juice, and it will start to curdle almost immediately. And you let it continue to cook until you can see the really big clumps of curds that have separated. And then you strain it. Now, I strained this a little too long, so you do not want to let this sit, and time got away from me, and I just let it sit here, and it strained too far. But if you do that, you can just add that whey back in, or you could even add cream if you don't want the whey in there when you blend it, because you put it all in your food processor or your blender and blend it into the smooth cream cheese. And so if it's too dry, it will never become smooth and have the texture of cream cheese. So you can add in, if that happens to you, just add back in the whey, which is what I'm doing here, or you can add cream if you would rather. You also add 1/2 teaspoon of salt when you blend it as well to help flavor that. And it is the easiest thing. If you were just overrun with milk, cream cheese is a good one. Now, I don't know if this works if you use pasteurized and homogenized milk. I don't know if it'll work. I didn't do it with that. Now, our goat's milk is naturally homogenized, but not in the same way that it is homogenized in the store, because if we leave our goat's milk to sit in the fridge, it will eventually separate after a few days, and I skim that just like I do the cow's milk. I just don't get as much cream from it because it doesn't completely separate like the cow's milk does. So I don't know if this will work with store-bought, but this is a very easy way if you have your own dairy cow, or you buy milk from someone local, or you have goat's milk or whatever. This is a very easy way to use that milk if you need to. And we had the luxury of making some this week. I mentioned that we were going on a little quick trip, and that was because it was Keith's grandparents' 62nd wedding anniversary, and they had planned a trip up to the Keeter Center at the College of the Ozarks in Branson, Missouri. We are about 3 hours from Branson, and so we go up maybe a couple times a year, and this is one of our favorite places to visit. My parents have been there a couple times. This was my first time actually eating in the Keeter Center, but I've been to the College of the Ozarks before. So if you don't know what it is a school, it is a college that the students pay their tuition by working at it. So they raise their own dairy cows, and you can buy the milk. They make ice cream from it. They have a big, nice restaurant, and the students work in the restaurant. They raise a lot of the food that's there, and that is how they pay their tuition. They have this gift shop that you can go to, and it is just a really lovely place. So I'm highlighting my favorite things here, and of course, wouldn't y'all know it, that it is a bunch of beautiful quilts that they had for sale in the gift shop. After we left the Keeter Center, that was what we went up there for. So Keith and I and the kids, we only stayed for one night, 2 days and one night. But we stayed at this cute little inn, I guess, called the Bradford Inn. And there's a cafe on the site. And so I just wanted to take you around and show you this cute little place. We don't have a lot of inns or bed and breakfasts that are really cute where I am from. It's mostly just hotels. And in Branson, it's hard to find that stuff too because it's a bunch of big lodges that you can stay at. And so I just thought this was so cute. I've never been to anything like this, and we really loved it. This is where we will stay from now on. We stayed in Big Cedar before in Branson, but usually we just get some kind of little hotel. And for the price that we paid for this was well worth it. So here's Aladon making herself at home and Jack making himself at home. Our room was cute. It was joined, so the kids had their own room, but it was still open to ours, which was nice. And then right next door, there was a cafe where you can eat. So we stopped for breakfast the next morning before we headed to the aquarium with the kids. We had a couple of things planned. The number one thing here was, well, the Keeter Center, because that's why we went up there. But then after that, the reason we stayed was to visit the aquarium. That was like our fun thing that we picked for just the four of us to do while we were up there. On our way to our hotel or inn that we stayed at, we passed this little country store called the Country Barn, and I told Keith we have to go back and go. They had all of these just country goods everywhere. It was just packed. So we stopped in, talked to the owners that run the place, and it's a bunch of things that their family creates, and they've started sourcing out into local farms. And it was on the family's original farm, and there were just so many cute things. So I grabbed a few things here, and I don't show them in this video. I haven't put them up or anything, but I just think this place was so fun. I dream of owning something like this one day. Now, as soon as we got back home, where do y'all think that the first place I went was? To our garden to cut a bouquet of zinnias. This is the first cut flower bouquet of the season. It was all zinnias. We don't have any sunflowers or anything else. I've actually slacked really bad at getting our flowers planted. We had all of these big dreams for flowers this year, and it's just not happening. Last year we had a lot more. So I'm hoping I can still get some more in the ground, but we will see. For now, we will take this beautiful little zinnia bouquet for our first of the summer. Now, while we were at the Country Barn, they had fresh peaches. Peaches were not fresh yet back home. They are just now getting that way a couple weeks later. So when we went into the store and I saw fresh, local to Branson peaches, I grabbed some up. This is the first thing that I like to do with peaches every single year. We are not big peach eaters. Alla and I love them fresh. But Keith isn't really, and I don't really love peach desserts. Like, I'm not going to make a peach pie or peach cobbler or anything like that. What I do love is this peach chicken recipe, and I love to make a peach syrup for our sweet tea. Keith and I love peach sweet tea, and so I'll be making that soon once we get some peaches local to us. But for now, let's make a creamy peach chicken. I have made this, I make it about once a year, and that's it. Which this is a concept that you could make over and over with different flavors. You don't have to have peaches. And what I love about this is it reminds me, the bare bones of the recipe reminds me of my mom always made this growing up, and it was just chicken and rice, but it was like a creamy, wasn't just like chicken and rice. It had a creamy chicken. Now she used cream of chicken in hers, but I make a homemade version of cream of chicken soup. This just reminds me of that. So this is like a seasonal spin on chicken and rice, just like my mom used to make. And so that, I think, truly is why I love it. Now, sometimes I will even make this without the peaches, but the peaches were inspired by a Farmhouse on Boone recipe. I know y'all all know her. I know you do. And she makes this and has this on her blog. And so that is where I kind of got the peach part of this. So come along, let's go make a creamy peach chicken and rice. I just take about a pound of chicken. So for this version, I just like to take about a pound of chicken breasts, 4 to 5, and I usually cut them in half to make them thinner so that they cook a little faster. I will add about a 1/4 cup of butter. I am using our fresh butter from our milk that I made. I will get that in a very, very hot cast iron skillet and then sear the chicken breasts and cook them all the way through in the skillet. Once the chicken is cooked completely through, I will remove it from the pan and let it set aside while I work on the cream sauce. All the while I have the rice going. While that cooks and the chicken rests, I am making the cream sauce. Now, there's all that chicken goodie in the bottom of the skillet, and so I like to add a little bit more butter and the juice from the peaches that I have already peeled and chopped up. Usually they will release some juices into whatever I have them sitting in. And so I will dump that in to deglaze the pan. If you want to add onions, you can do that now. My family does not love onions like I do, so I don't add them. Once that's deglazed a little bit, I will add my peaches, a little bit of honey, maybe a couple of tablespoons, maybe a teaspoon of mustard sometimes. I don't always do that, but she does call for it in her recipe. And then I will add in my heavy cream, salt, and pepper. It is about a cup of cream. I will also add in my peaches. I usually do 2 to 4 peaches, depending on how big they are, maybe about 2 cups. I cook everything until it reduces enough to coat the back of the spoon. Then to serve, I just add a little bit of rice on the plate, the sauce and the peaches on top of the rice, and then I add some chopped up chicken that I sliced on top, and I like to sprinkle it with more fresh herbs and some green onion on my plate because I'm the only one who likes onions. A perfect meal for a relaxing summer evening, ending the day by watching the sun go down and catching a few fireflies.